Come here to the fight. Come here to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks a tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
All right, welcome in, Lions Gray Mains fam. My name is Chris Stone. I'm at castahead.net. And the gentleman on the right side of the screen, he is the Chief Intelligence Officer of Blue Kool-Aid and Cornbread, Dr. Brent Kreider, DBC. Hey, did it feel like a loss against the Bengals?
Yeah, it's sort of deflating because we'll get into all the reasons why, but the Lions had quite a few opportunities to score, and they didn't score. The turnover on Manu not blocking anybody and just not taking advantage of all the situations. But again, these are good things, good problems to have. You mentioned it last week, Chris, when it feels like you lost and you're number one in the NFL in scoring and on track to be second all time on the season scoring list. So right. So I'll take that all day.
Yeah, I think we have to kind of understand, we always feel like it's never good enough. We just came off a 15-2 season, and then the book ended of the loss against Washington, and then followed by Green Bay, and then all just became right in the world, and we expect to go undefeated, and we have to remember. Bengals are an NFL team, and we got our starting cornerback, our CB1 at the time, who people love to talk badly about. But when he was out, Bengals scored 3 touchdowns on us, and that changed the game a little bit, didn't it? We all kind of felt like we were just going to cruise to a 50-burger, and unfortunately, Jake Browning had other things in mind, especially when Terrion Arnold got hurt. And we're going to get into the injuries later in the show. We're going to be bringing on Dan Keener. We also have Mike Terry in the back giving us all the data and fact-checking everything that we say because, I don't say anything wrong. But Brent, we got to fact-check Brent because, no, I'm kidding. But we're in the house, and, ladies and gentlemen, we are Lions Gray Mains. Make sure, if this is your first time joining us, hit us up in the chat. The chat is wide open. We want to identify the folks that are in here on the show. We're live on X. We're live on Twitch. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. All the places. Soon to be TikTok. I know not everybody here is a TikToker, but we're going to have live access there very, very soon. So we're excited about some new folks over there. So if you're here, hit us up in the chat. Let us know about your thoughts on the Bengals game, how you feel about how things are going with the secondary, how you feel. We're going to be talking about the upcoming game against the Chiefs because we did see the Chiefs last night, and kind of felt like I was hoping the Chiefs would win. Brent, I don't know about you because then they kind of feel a little high on themselves coming in, but I think we have some things to look at there. And speaking of the chat being wide open, our friend Wanda Rich is in the house. Hey. She says, you mentioned the Lions defense can be elite on the last show. Please explain how that is the case. Now, before we get into this, Wanda, and we're going to roll it over to the elite Dr. Brent Kreider on this. But before we go into this, Wanda, and you'll appreciate this, I'm going to initiate a drinking game for Lions Gray Mains, and I'm gonna pull in our man Dan Keener as well, and he's ready. He's ready to have a drink. So get out your blue Kool-Aid of choice. I've got some Lions G Series Cool Blue for that. I also have some Town Club Honolulu blue cream soda as well. And we're going to have a drinking game. So every time the word elite is spoken, take a drink. So the blue Kool-Aid of your choice, and we're going to roll it over to the elite Dr. Brent Kreider. See what I did? There we go. Everybody,
There
have
you
a sip.
Take a drink. Take a drink.
Ooh, that Kool-Aid tastes good. And we'll talk about this. The defense can be elite, and I think that's the key, right, Brent? The defense can be elite, and I think it has a lot to do with their health. So, DBC, we'll roll this over to you, man.
Well, where do we start? We've covered over the past few weeks the defensive line, the linebacking core, and the secondary. And look, one of the things that I think every elite, there you go, I owe one drink, every elite team and defensive team in the history of the NFL has had premium players at all levels of the defense. And the Lions are in a position to where they have top shelf. See what I did there? Top shelf players at all levels of the defense. Now, in the NFL, we know that health matters as much as anything, because if you're not available and you can't play, then you don't matter.
Yep.
And so the beauty is that we haven't lost players for the year, with the exception of Rakestraw to this point. We're in a situation to where we are going to get players back, and when Dan comes in, we're going to do a deep dive again on cornerback situation. But it looks like we may have avoided a catastrophic situation with Terrion Arnold. We've got some reporting indicating that the injury is not as bad as it appeared to be. DJ Reed's on the injured list. He's got 3 more weeks on that to where he can start practicing again. And we're, we were told that his injury was not as bad as originally anticipated it being. And what DJ said was it felt like the bone tore, the hamstring tore off the bone. And so the good news is it's probably a grade 2 sprain from all indications, meaning 4 to 6 weeks he should be back on the field. Cornerbacks, I feel really good, especially after a lot of folks were criticizing Terrion Arnold over the past few weeks, and I like many others paid a lot of attention to Terrion Arnold this week, and I had intended on doing an analysis, but there were a number of folks that did a really great job of analyzing his play. Yeah, and when he was in the game, Jamar Chase had 2 receptions and something like 20-something yards. And so the good news is I feel like Terrion Arnold is maturing, as we had discussed a few weeks back. I think DJ Reed has proven over time to be a really good player at corner. Now, the Lions, when they have those guys on the field, they present some unique opportunities for the rest of the defense. When you can lock down on the outside, you can let your linebackers focus on that second level beyond the midfield, where when teams play action pass, they love to throw to the tight ends, they love to throw the ends to the receivers. And so with our safeties, who I would argue our safeties are the best in the NFL. ESPN did a rating on safeties, and both Brian Branch and Kirby were rated in the top 5 safeties in the NFL. There's no other team that has a pair of safeties like the Lions have. Regardless, Dan was a big advocate for drafting Hamilton a few years ago, and he by many our accounts is the top rated safety in the NFL. And so when you can play 2 safeties that are top 5 safeties, and the combination of good cornerbacks, safeties, and then you start to look at our linebackers. Yeah, I love that image. But you look at the linebackers, and Jack Campbell has taken tremendous strides in his play. Yeah. There was one play that I remember, Chris, during the Bengals game, you were saying, who is he covering? But it was a situation where the quarterback wasn't past the line of scrimmage. He has to maintain his discipline and stick with the receiver. But it's one of those. It did look like he just
let him go by him. It was a wacky play, and it definitely out of character for him, because he's proven that he can play. I just feel like, because I know we've got a lot to get to tonight. I just feel like there are a handful of players. I think Jack Campbell's on the cusp of being that player, right? I think we know Brian Branch is that player. I think we know Kirby Joseph is that player. I think we know Aiden Hutchinson is that player. I loved how our defensive line is playing around Aiden Hutchinson. I felt like our defensive line had a fantastic game against the Bengals, and I think that was proven with the PFF grades as well. Obviously, our secondary now is hurt. And so it's tough to say, hey, this defense can be elite because these guys are hurt. And I think all of the news and the coverage, to your point about Terrion, like, hey, what we saw was a really bad interference play from Terrion, but he got beat and he took a dive that he shouldn't have, and that interference call was not great. That was kind of that felt like last year Terrion kind of, and you're going to get that. But then, I think it was one or two plays later, made a great play on the ball, and certainly that pick that Kirby made was going to be Terrion's pick, and the reason why they were in that situation was because of the great coverage of Terrion Arnold in that situation. So I do want to bring in Dan on this because we are covering the Bengals game, but I wanted, what we're talking about tonight is injuries, and a lot of that is in the secondary. We did get some good, I don't want to say good news, but I mean probably the best news considering, on Terrion. I think we're talking about him coming back in 4 weeks? Is that what we're potentially talking about?
I believe they said that the timeline, if it holds from today's news, that he would be good would be by the end of October. So that's 2 games in the bye week. And honestly, keep in mind, no transactions today from the Lions. They did try and poach a cornerback from the Saints roster. But the Saints countered and moved him up, or practice squad, excuse me. Saints countered and moved him up to their main roster. So Brad is trying to get some more some more depth out there and some healthy guys. He was a bigger kid. It's like 6'2", like 195, tackler, not much of a playmaker in terms of interceptions, but lots of tackles, and he's played a lot of football. So didn't get him, but he's trying. Holmes is trying to bolster the ranks. I will say this, though. I just double-checked something before we hopped on. I was unaware of this, but the bye week does not count towards the 4-week window for a player that goes on injured reserve.
Oh.
So that means 5 weeks for anybody that overlaps that bye week. They're actually out. So that's probably why we didn't see somebody like Decker, even Reed for that matter. Did Reed go on injured reserve? He did.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
He did. Arnold wasn't put on IR today. Of course, they didn't get somebody to replace him on the roster, so maybe that's the case. And we don't know what the deal is with Dorsey. He had a concussion. Then he left the game with a wrist injury. Or, I'm sorry, he didn't play, but they said he was out. He got a wrist injury in practice last week. So, and I believe Campbell said yesterday he's going to be out for a while. And he may be out longer than Arnold is at this point. So, but he was not put on injured reserve either. So, not sure where we're going, but we are trying to, Lions are still trying to look for depth. We signed Nick Whiteside, who was with us in camp. Obviously, Trey Flowers somehow made it onto the field, which not ideal.
No.
He was out there on that busted play when Chase took that 60-plus yard touchdown.
Yep.
I don't know if that was his side of the field or a mix-up or what happened there.
Yeah,
but
that was
somebody obviously it's broken coverage somewhere.
That felt like deja vu for last year we had so many guys we were signing. Jamal Adams off the couch and he was playing, right? It was just, it was crazy, how that was, and that's what it felt like with Trey Flowers. It was like he just got signed and he didn't even, he came out with his mouthpiece not even connected to his face mask and it was flopping. It looked like he had just got his jersey that afternoon, and it was it was a little unnerving. And of course, the Amik Robertson, I love Amik. He had a pick in the game. It was fantastic. He just guessed wrong against the best wide receiver in the game, and
he played the wrong coverage.
I mean, that was shortly after Terrion got taken out of the game, right? And so I feel like how much I mean, Dan, Brent, either one of you guys, feel free to chime in on this. How much of this is, Shep learning this kind of stuff? Like, like when your CB1 goes out, like what how are we changing we're not just saying, okay, next man up, just plug this guy in, especially on this team. They got a number of hybrid guys. Robertson has been playing safety as well.
Though,
like all those guys are out there, right? Do you feel like there was a plan that Shep had for that? Or are we just, like, I don't know. I just feel like Amik is better than that. And he just made a bad play there.
To your point, though, I think he did have a plan. The problem was his plan got blown up. When that went in, Avonte Maddox was already on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So he is our next man up. He's that hybrid corner safety role guy. He was already on the field when we lost whoever got hurt and got knocked out with cramps. Who was that? Who had the cramps?
Rock Yassin.
Rock Yassin.
Yeah.
So Rock Yassin went off with cramps the second time. That was the play that brought in Trey Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously Amik guessed wrong. So
Right.
at that point in time, you had plan C and D on the field already, Chris, from my perspective. So, he had, I'm sure going to that game, he had a very set rotation of how he'd be bringing folks in. I did read somewhere, I think it was Brad Gallus who posted it, about how the Lions played too high safety more in this game than they had all year long.
Mm.
So that's probably your counter to losing so many of your pure cornerbacks. But yeah, I think he has a plan. I think he stuck with it, and it is what it is. We have who we have right now, and we picked guys up. But kind of like this Hutch thing, getting his extension signed, if you don't get somebody on your roster, a good replacement, if you have aspirations of being a playoff team and you want to sign somebody like go get a Tariq Woolen from, Seattle or whoever, you needed to do it before you had injuries to the point where you're getting decimated and the price goes up.
Yep.
So
you lose your leverage.
Woolen could have been he could have been a 6th rounder 2 weeks ago. Now he might be a 4th, which I don't believe we even have a 4th. So,
right.
You got to, that's something to keep in mind too, is that Holmes is not going to overpay, but he also needs to consider that, the longer he waits, if we get more injuries, we are definitely going to have to pay a premium.
Brent, do you think coming into Kansas City and then Tampa Bay, that we're going to be, not only are we looking at two of the premier quarterbacks in the league in Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, also quite mobile quarterbacks as well, and that absolutely puts stress on not just linebackers trying to track these guys down, but it keeps them in the pocket longer, scrambling around, and your cornerbacks have to cover longer. How worried are you going into Kansas City and then Tampa Bay with the cornerbacks we have?
Yeah, I think to the point Dan made about too high safety, I think the plan going into the game, even being down just DJ Reed, was to play more too high safety. When you've got the receivers that the Bengals have, you have to take away the deep ball, because that was going to be how they were going to score their points, and it proved out to be the case. And so too high safety is probably what you're going to see more of in Kansas City and against Tampa Bay than what you would have seen with DJ Reed and TA out on the field. So look, Dan Campbell addressed this in his press conference. He very clearly said, look, we're not just going to roll guys out there and expect them to perform at the same level as DJ and Terrion. And we're gonna coach them up. We're gonna put schematically them in the best position to be successful. And so what I think you're going to see more zone. You're going to see potentially some cover 2, and you're going to see 2 high safeties in that cover 2, because you've got to take away the deep ball. Patrick Mahomes, you saw it last night. He throws the deep ball as well as anybody. and Baker Mayfield is an absolute gunslinger. He's got weapons all over the field,
tough as nails.
now.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are going to be two much more difficult games for the Lions than they would have been if we had been able to lock down, the outside receivers. But the Bucs, in fairness, they've got some injury concerns that we'll get into next week in more detail. But their leading receiver is still injured from a hamstring injury. Not sure if Mike Evans will be back for the Lions game. You got another stud receiver that's coming off of a dislocated broken ankle, and he's really just kind of getting his legs back under him. So Ibuka is really having a fantastic rookie season. Not a surprise because Baker Mayfield. I got a lot of time for Baker Mayfield. He's as fire as they come. He can throw the football. He's tough as nails, and so the Lions, when they play Tampa, are going to have to be concerned about the same thing that they're going to be concerned about with Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs, I mean, you hate to talk this early in the season about must-win games, but the Chiefs are finding themselves quickly in a position to where they're gonna not have home field advantage. And part of the recipe for success for the Chiefs has been year after year after year after year is home field advantage, a bye and home field advantage, bringing teams to Arrowhead Stadium in January, and so they're clearly not in a position to where if they lose a couple more games to where they're going to have the number one seed and host teams in Kansas City. Doesn't mean that Patrick Mahomes can't go anywhere and win, but the Chiefs did not look like the Chiefs of old to me last night. And watching them over the last few weeks, just a little bit, the Chiefs are not what the Chiefs were when they won those Super Bowls. And doesn't mean that the Lions will win, doesn't mean the Lions will lose in Arrowhead, but there are some things that are concerning from a Chiefs perspective. There was a video last night of the All-Pro, reportedly, and arguably the best defensive tackle in the NFL, just standing there on that touchdown run that you were just playing, and so it much like what we're seeing with the Ravens, there's a lot to be critical of. Now that the Chiefs are not the dumpster fire that the Ravens have become at this point. Yeah. But the Chiefs are certainly not the elite team that we've seen over the past few years. So I think there's a case to be made that the Lions, I really do believe the Lions are going to score their points. I just can't see that Chiefs defense shutting the Lions down when the Jaguars offense looked incredibly efficient last night. The Jaguars should have had 2 more touchdowns in that game. That fumble on the 1-inch line that they had, and then they really moved the ball at will on that Chiefs defense.
The pick return for a touchdown was a big deal. I mean, 99 yard. I mean, that swing is just hard to overcome, even when you are the Chiefs. And I just feel like, there's the defense in my opinion probably will be a lot like what we saw them against Lamar, and a little bit like they played Caleb, where let's not send the house guys flying at this guy, because he's slippery. You saw Patrick Mahomes, very slippery player. And when he can get through that line and kind of, do his thing, jump around and throw the ball in some weird way and hit guys, that's when you can get caught with Patrick Mahomes. But you're gonna see Patrick Mahomes make a play or two like that every game. There's not a lot you could do about it. You just you're try to get him down, and hope your cornerbacks can cover long enough. Mike Terry did hit us back here with some information. We do have a 4th round pick from what Mike says. We've got our own picks in rounds 1 through 5, and round 6 is unclear, acquired through trade, specific not confirmed, and then 7th round is an unclear conditional pick from previous trades. So we have a little. Looks like we have a little juice to play with, in terms of, getting a Reek Woolen or somebody. I'm not super, but no team is trading good cornerbacks. I mean, I know that they're sniffing at this guy who's on the Giants and is just coming off an injury, and of course what better player for Brad Holmes than a guy that's coming off an injury, right? No, we won't say that, but. In any event,
couple things to point out, Chris, on the Chiefs defense. That we were hitting on there. One is the Jaguars were able to throw the ball effectively. I really do think that the Chiefs had the benefit of a few calls, which I guess Super Bowl champions and teams with the reputation that they have often do get calls. And thanks, Mike, for posting the penalties there. Even during the play, the announcer, the ref who's on studio alert there was saying that's pass interference. The Chiefs receiver set the pick 3 or 4 yards down the field, and the Chiefs were arguing it was a 1 yard pick, and therefore it was a legal pick. I think all of us would look at that and go, that was clearly, I mean, the guy went into the edge of the end zone and started blocking, and set a really good pick. It would have been great in the NBA, fantastic NBA pick, for a power forward, setting a pick for a swing coming off. And so, the Chiefs had the benefit of a few calls that great teams, take a drink, oftentimes have get the benefit of those calls. So we can expect 80,000 fans. The Lions fans will invade again like a couple of years ago, and it's a lot of fun. The Arrowhead crowd is good people, Midwestern values,
loudest stadium I've ever been in.
Loudest stadium in football, and they are going to come, and they've got revenge on their mind. They know that the Lions beat them. There was a lot of talk about that after the fact. The Lions, were very proud of what they had accomplished. And I think the Chiefs are proud, and they will remember that, just like the Lions have laid wood a few times. Remember what they did to Dallas last year after losing, a close game that we shouldn't have lost, and the Chiefs felt like they probably shouldn't have lost that game. They were down to, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. So the reality is that the Chiefs are going to come motivated to play, and they, as I said, it's going to become a desperate situation for them if they don't win some games, and run off a few wins in a row, because their dreams of getting back to the Super Bowl this year are going to be dramatically impacted if they don't have that home field advantage. So winning is going to be very important to them this week. The Lions, they're going to see a wounded cat. They're going to see the fact that we've got our corners down, and Mahomes has got some weapons. The receivers, Worthy and Brown and Kelce, and Smith-Schuster, they've got receivers that can get down the field. And so the key to this game is going to be how well those corners can hold up, that safety, over the top coverage, as well as pressure. Can we get pressure on Mahomes like we did a couple of years ago, and make it so that he is not able to just sit back there and pick the secondary apart? We saw what the Bengals with a guy who arguably shouldn't even be playing in the NFL could do in the second half against those second, third, and as Dan called it, fourth string corners. And so, this week, the keys to the game are going to be how well that secondary can hold up, how much pressure we can apply in containing Patrick Mahomes, because once he breaks contain and gets out on the edge, he is a master at behind the back passes, free throw shot passes, chest passes, and finding deep receivers that break open late in the secondary. So with that, I think those are probably the keys to the game defensively for the Lions.
Hey, Chris, if you want some late, breaking news. We now know who the officiating crew is, and it's very favorable to the Lions.
Really?
So just came out. It is officiating crew is Craig Rolstad. It's Wrolstad. I'll post it tomorrow. All the stuff on it.
At
But if you want to pop up
thegraymains.com,
at
everyone.
thegraymains.com, it's elite. I needed a drink. I'm sorry. If you want to bring up that tail of the tape on the penalties that I posted in the chat there, if you take a look at the bottom of that thing, it shows which team is, the teams and how they're susceptible. So that's the wrong one. That's you want the second one down. That's the lineup. There you go. So if you look at the penalties, look at the top 2 penalties for the Chiefs. Bottom right. What do you see there?
Quantity of 10 for offensive holding and a quantity of 5 penalties for false start.
All right. So we've played the Chiefs before, and we all know the legend that is Jawan Taylor. Mr. lines up in the backfield and jumps every time. Well, guess what? This year, the NFL is finally calling Mr. Taylor for his violations of penalties. He has 7 penalties this year so far, and 4 offensive holdings, 2 false starts, and 2 illegal formations. So this guy here is finally getting called for the stuff that everyone has been, and I guess I could say it, we're not family friendly, are we? Bitching about with him for the last 3-4 years. He has been constantly given a huge get off advantage over a defensive end because they just simply weren't calling him for breaking protocol, right? And leaving early and lining up late. So he's going to be going up against Hutchinson, and he is going to be probably flagged. And the reason I say that is because I just went and pulled the data, and I'll post this tomorrow, but the top 2 penalties called by this crew this year have been offensive holding and false start. So that's right in the wheelhouse of Mr. Taylor. So I do expect the Lions, we have a few of those too. That's our second and third most penalties in our team. But I do expect that we're going to see a heavy dose of the Lions, and Campbell's not going to be afraid to talk to the officials and point out to them that, hey, you need to keep an eye on Taylor because, we're lining up across from him. He's been getting away with murder, and, we expect that he's going to leave early and he's going to line up wrong. So essentially, this is in the wheelhouse of this crew. So I'm expecting to get an advantage there at least that we haven't had. Last week we were at a disadvantage. That crew, they lead the league in penalties, number 1, and number 2, they also lead the league by far in the amount of penalties they call against the visiting team. So that surprised me, but it came true. We had 8 for whatever it was last week, and the Bengals didn't have hardly near that. I think they had like 5 or 6. They weren't even close, but they were all of smaller variety. So I do expect to see an advantage this week with the officiating, and that hopefully will help negate some of the deficiencies we have in our defensive backfield.
Yeah.
I believe also that I will say this. I do believe they're going to get Rashid Rice back from suspension. I don't think he played Monday night.
Even though he was when he was suspended, I did the math and thought that did not include our game. So that he was going to be back the week after our game. I might be wrong.
Maybe we don't get him. Maybe this week 6 we're doing. So maybe he is not back this week. Looking at the stats from last night, I didn't catch the game in its entirety, but looks like there was somebody on their roster who had some big plays deep. Tyquan Thornton had 3 catches for 90 yards. He averaged 30 yards a catch. So I don't know who this kid is. Kelsey, of course, had 7 catches and 61 yards, but he's going to be somebody that I think we can have controlled with our linebacking crew. They've just gotten better and better between Anzalone and Barnes and Campbell. Campbell's very underrated as a linebacker that can cover. I know we've made fun of him, or Brent has made fun of him, or said this isn't the best, but between those guys and our safeties, I think Kelsey
Brent
will
says
stay
he's
controlled.
elite. Brent said
Not
he was
pass
elite.
coverage, he doesn't. I thought you were making fun of him 2 weeks ago.
No, I think Campbell, like Terrion Arnold, is getting a bad rap. If you go
Yeah.
back and break down the film, Campbell is top shelf, guys. I mean, Jack Campbell is going to be an all NFL linebacker.
I'm going to start adding
my
top
word.
shelf to the list of drinking game things. Like you
Well,
can't,
based
you
on
can't
whatever you
you're
say.
cheating. You can't.
If you say top shelf, you better be drinking something good on that instead of just
Exactly.
well liquor.
Yeah, we need the blue Kool-Aid on Yeho.
Yes.
Exactly. So thank you for the Pappies. Mike Terry says Pappies. So Brent, thanks for the clarification. Rice is eligible to return week 7 against the Las Vegas Raiders. So, hey, happy that was, I was like, and I wasn't 100% sure. So thanks for fact. See, guys, this is what you get on Lions Gray Mains. You get not just people
Mistakes
putting stuff out there and, then having to go back and, we correct ourselves live. That's kind of
and breaking news. Dan coming out with breaking news.
Yeah.
But to go back to Dan's point, Tyquan Thornton, Dan, if that's who you were talking about, I think.
Yeah, the wide receiver number 80.
He was at Baylor. He was a 2nd-round pick 3 years ago. And he's a really good athlete. He'd probably be starting on a lot of teams, but the Chiefs have very good depth at receiver, and so he doesn't get as much playing time as I think he could if he were on another team. But Rashee Rice will be back in a couple weeks, and so the Chiefs they're gonna come out this week, and I think they're gonna play a really tough game. They're gonna, this is not going to be easy, and they are favored, by the way, by a point or point and a half, and they are favored, and I think that is, I don't think I don't feel like oh God, that I don't feel disrespected at all. That is a absolute tough place to play. I know we went in there a couple years ago in week 1 and walked away with a win. Great point there, Brent. They did not have Kelsey, but they did not have Jones either. I do feel like Jones is probably getting his rear end reamed in the film room for taking that play off, which Lawrence ended up scoring on. It was a big factor in the game. So I do feel like he's gonna come back and he's gonna be Chris Jones, and so that. And Jones is an interior. They move him around a lot, but he causes some real problems in the interior. And so I'm a little stressed out about that. But I wanted to, if I may, guys, kind of pivot a little bit over because we are talking about some deja vu and some injuries. One of the key injured players that we've got is Taylor Decker at left tackle. Obviously, the blind side of Jared Goff. And one of the things that we were, when we talked about the pregame live, and those that are listening or watching, we do go live before the games, and we will do that again this Sunday, right? Because we were playing Sunday night
evening.
Yeah, yep. You're right. So we'll do a pregame. We usually go live for about an hour. It's much more loose. There's not a ton of data. We get pumped up for the game. We give predictions. And we have a lot of fun, and felt like this past Sunday was a lot of fun. So please join us on Sunday. Watch for that as well. And, of course, all of that stuff, you can follow us on Gray Mains, at Gray Mains, thegraymains.com, and we'll make sure that wherever you're at and you're comfortable to watch and listen, you could do that as well. But back to this, which is the Taylor Decker injury, and I love how Campbell addressed it, guys. He basically said, hey, listen, it just felt like every time we were giving him Taylor the time off and then having him play on Sunday, it felt like it was not improving. They were kind of like pushing a rock up a hill, and so he just felt like, listen, we're going to give him another week and see what we have there. I don't think he said that it was a definitive that Taylor Decker was out at Kansas City, but I think we're starting to assume that this may be the case, that they're trying to figure that out. So that he talked about Manu, he talked about the other options that we talked about this past Sunday, that we talked about that happening, because when he got downgraded and then became inactive, We were like, oh God, let's make sure we've got a plan. And the one thing that we didn't want to see was Trey Hendrickson coming around that edge, seemingly unblocked, turnstiling Giovanni Manu. And there it was. And the worst things that can happen is a turnover in that situation, which that happened. And then even worse would have been an injury. So you don't like to see your quarterback get hit like that, right? And so I think when we're talking about left tackle and our options there, guys, let's just assume Taylor Decker's not playing against Kansas City. I know that gives me a little bit of a pit in my stomach, but do you think let's put Manu in there again? Let's learn from what happened, even though we got the lowest PFF grade, I think, ever from an offensive lineman.
Fourth lowest.
Fourth lowest ever.
I looked it up. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think, do we learn from those mistakes? Do we give him more help? Do we attach Brock Wright to his left hip? Do we, do we game plan around that, knowing that there is thing, because the Chiefs are salivating if Decker's out there. I'll roll this over, Brent. What are your thoughts here on the tackle position and how we're going to approach that?
You know what comes to mind, being that we're Gray Mains, is Larry Turnstile Tharp. I don't know if you guys, if you guys remember that
Turnstile.
Wow.
He was well known for, being a turnstile for defensive ends to just go right around him. And we don't have Barry Sanders in the backfield anymore to break tackles, immediately upon taking the handoff, like was the case back in the day. But the fact of the matter is that the situation with Manu is not good. If we don't have Decker against this Chiefs defense, we're going to find ourselves in a position to where Goff is going to take a lot of hits. We had talked about how he hadn't been sacked since the opening day game, and the Bengals had 4 sacks. All credit to the fact that they have one of the best defensive ends in all of football. Hendrickson proved why he's what he is. Watching that guy get the edge is impressive. So what the Chiefs don't have is that elite edge rusher like Hendrickson. Now, when you look at Manu, I watched him a few times after Goff almost got killed. It looked like he got hit by a truck. Was the fact that in the run game, Manu is such a big body. Giovanni Manu is a big soul. And so his ability to lock up and create lanes, he's despite having the 3rd worst rating ever for an offensive lineman.
He's not elite, is what you're saying?
He is the antithesis of that.
Everybody spit your drinks back in your cups.
He is the well, talking top shelf, and he is the well, right? But frankly, I think the one thing we haven't talked about is our quarterback, Jared Goff, is playing at a level that no Detroit Lions quarterback has ever played at. And Dan posted to the, for those of you that are listeners, we have a Slack group that we share information. It's fantastic. Dan was kind enough to set it up a few years ago, and we share thoughts and publish articles and share, information there. And I was looking at Jared Goff's stats after Dan posted that, Jared Goff has these outstanding passing statistics when pressured, and his reputation in the past, whether it was deserved or not, just like Terrion Arnold is the worst cornerback in the history of the world. Discussions that we've been listening to over the past month. Jared Goff his quarterback rating is 120.7. We're talking about one of the best quarterback ratings, and if it sustains for a full season, in the history of the NFL. I mean, few quarterbacks have ever achieved a quarterback rating of 120.7 over the course of a season. We're only almost a third of the way through the season here. But Jared Goff is having a fantastic year. And I thought, just for giggles, because we can go back to the Manu conversations and what do we do about the offensive line in a second. But Jared Goff's quarterback ratings, is higher than everybody in the NFL except Lamar Jackson, who has an unbelievable 130.5 quarterback rating. Despite the Ravens melting down, Lamar is a great quarterback. And we there's a lot of conversation in the media. The media is really playing up this Dak Prescott for MVP. I was watching
really
Get Up this morning, and these guys love Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's the MVP of the league, folks. Jared Goff is playing at levels beyond what Dak Prescott is even capable of playing at.
Ask Jared Goff what he thinks about it, and you know what he'll tell you. I don't care.
He doesn't care. He wants to win. He wants to play.
That's our quarterback right there. That's it.
Exactly.
Does he want to be elite, Brent?
I think he wants to be elite in the sense that he wants to be a leader and wants the Lions to win, and whatever he can do to contribute to that. Some days you got to make plays, right? I mean, as a quarterback, the ball's in your hand every play except for the snap to Montgomery for the touchdown pass.
I think all these numbers are overrated. I really do. I mean, it's like, listen, Joe Burrow is an outstanding quarterback. Like he's one of 11 players on that side of the ball that play, and he's not, obviously he's not he's not in. He's
making more than a minimum wage, too.
Right. To your point, Brent, I think Jared Goff is in a lot of I don't subscribe to the Lions fans that say why is Jared Goff not being mentioned in the MVP race and all of those kinds of things. I'm okay with that. I actually think this team seems to thrive without it. I actually think us being underdogs going into Kansas City, they thrive on this. The leadership of Dan Campbell, that team, and it's like I want to bring in this comment really quickly, Brent. So please put a pin in that. We want to get back to this. The Two Fan is joining us. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Professional team sports are challenging to coach. Managing the emotions of the team is where the magic happens. Having said that, what matters most about last week? The win or the way they played? This is an excellent question because it kind of ties into what we're talking about here. Is like, are we, we have a team here, right? This is led by a coach that a lot I think 30 other teams would love to have, but they're not going to say it, right? I know the Cardinals right now would rather have MCDC as a head coach because he's not pushing players and getting fined on the sidelines. I digress. But this is a great question, Brent. What are your thoughts here? What matters most about last week, the win or the way they played?
What does Dan Campbell say after every game? Wins in the NFL are hard. Winning in the NFL is hard. It is the most elite athletes in the world. The margin between victory and defeat in the NFL is so small. There are 5 or 6 plays oftentimes that decide the game because of that razor sharp edge between winning and losing a game. And so you don't think the Miami Dolphins wouldn't love to have Dan Campbell coaching their team? Wouldn't 28, potentially 29 other teams love to have Dan Campbell coaching their team? Of course,
100%.
Because Dan Campbell's focus is on the team. And, I know Keener here is a Ohio State guy and I'm a Michigan guy, but it's all about the team. And I will absolutely go to my grave believing that Dan Campbell's focus for this group of gentlemen is to win. And if we win ugly, so what? If we win, luckily, so what?
Yeah.
A win is a win. And what does winning do? Winning breeds a confidence. Winning breeds a conviction that you can do it at any time, that you can do it every week, and that you can do it for the long run. And so what I love about the Two Fans question, and by the way, thanks Two Fan for joining. We're deeply appreciative of you and Wanda and all the other folks who are constantly engaging and posting comments. We genuinely appreciate you guys so much. But at the end of the day, the best teams in the history of football have been about playing for each other. And this team, JMO, another example, they interviewed him the other day. Do you care that you don't get the ball? And it's the media stirring up stuff, right? They're trying to stir up controversy. They're trying to get a story. And what does JMO say? I don't really care.
Yeah, he just got paid though. Of course he doesn't care.
Yeah, I do love watching him block, man. I love watching JMO block.
Absolutely.
He's always down the field blocking, man.
You know where he learned that at, Chris? He didn't learn it at Alabama.
Oh, I knew that was.
You don't get on the field if you don't block at Ohio State.
He learned it from Monroe St. Brown.
So the team. That was Woody Hayes, right?
2 years.
Wasn't that Woody Hayes that said that?
Probably. I don't know. Somebody back in the 70s said that. I don't know. I don't really care. Win's a win is a win. That's the important thing there.
Exactly. But
Brent hit it.
But the bottom line, guys, is that what Dan Campbell is creating is a culture of people who care more about each other. Dan brought up the military history part of Mike and myself having spent years in the Navy and in the Air Force. And what you learn is, and what they do in basic training is break you down. They take away your being an individual. And I watched an amazing speech by the Raiders coach. I love that guy. I didn't like him when he was at USC. It certainly wasn't a fan when he was with Seattle.
Pete Carroll.
But Pete Carroll gave a speech about how you indoctrinate players in the military and in the NFL, and they're unlike any other culture. The NFL has the challenge of, these are millionaires, multimillionaires, 100 millionaires, almost billionaires nowadays in some cases. And so culturally, what you used to be able to do to the NFL players was much like what you could do to guys in the military, gentlemen and ladies in the military. And what Dan Campbell has managed to do, and we've talked about this in shows past, William, it's my pleasure. But what Dan Campbell has been able to do, MCDC as he is affectionately known, is he has got everybody focused more on the team and winning. And it may be your week. We hear Knuckles and Sonic talk about this all the time. They don't care if they carry. They both, of course, want to carry the ball.
Yeah, of course.
Make no mistake about it. They are fierce competitors, but they know that their time and their week and their day is going to come at some point. And what I'm seeing from the receivers is, and I'll tell you right now, I do not think for a second that Michigan or Ohio State or any college program teaches the receivers to block like the Lions have made that a priority, because Amon-Ra St. Brown, fierce blocker. Look at the rookie Tesla from Arkansas. That guy he earned his reputation at the Senior Bowl. So Dan, to your point, you may be 100% right. There are college programs that focus on it more than others, certainly, but the Lions have made that a priority, and that's all about sacrificing, because you've got these premier position guys, one of the 3 top paid positions, receivers, and they're prima donnas in many instances. And those guys are out there fighting and blocking.
Yeah.
And ultimately the Lions running game is the success that it is because of that. And so, to the Two Fans question, you're absolutely, hitting on the right nerve. And that is that Dan Campbell has made it a priority for these folks to win, regardless of how ugly it might be. And so, what I think the greatest success that the Lions are going to have is going to be, they may not have the best players at every position. We can talk about levels of greatness, and go, debate that all day. But they've got really good players at all levels of the offense and defense. And the best part about it is they're focused on being the best team that they can be.
I love it. And just to tie that in, and we're going to roll it over to Dan because he's got a point here. But Wanda, thank you. You are not a pest. There is no such thing as a pest on this show. We appreciate each and every one of you who are joining. And listen, anybody's got any comments or questions, you see how it is. We pull you up. Unless you're a bot, like we're seeing here on Twitch tonight. You don't see our screen, bot. How dare you be a bot on our screen? Dan, I know you had a point to what Brent was talking about.
Yeah, it kind of ties back when he was talking about he's going about the culture, and we were joking about a win's a win is a win, right? But, back to this deja vu theme that tonight's pod is about, we started it with the injuries, and, I do have a comment about the line also here in a minute, but the one thing we can't do, and yes, a win is a win is a win, but we can't do what we did last year, which was not prepare for the long haul, and we lost in the playoffs because of injuries on our D line, and of course somebody wasn't giving it their all, and he wasn't on the field. Unfortunately, he was distracted. But we can't do that again this year. It's Benedict, I believe, is how you
Benedict Johnson. You've
Benedict
been called.
Johnson. So we need to make sure that Brad and Dan need to make sure that they don't fall into that same trap of, oh, we're winning, that's great. We're winning ugly, we're winning big, we're dominating. I don't want to see them fall into that same trap where they don't try and address deficiencies because he gets a couple guys, he gets some depth. What happens? We're down. If you use Rakestraw as another example, we are down 3 of our top 5 or 4 of our top 5 cornerbacks right now.
Yep.
And that's not good. Yes, we'll get them back. Last year we lost guys at the end of the season for extended periods. This year it feels like we're getting some bonus. We're getting guys like McNeil back, and we should get Reed back. We should get Arnold back, and so on. But we can't be complacent and just accept wins. We have to stay ahead of the curve this year to be a championship team. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make, is that we really need to make sure they stay on that. It's not, nothing we could do about it, but I think Brad's actions today trying to grab somebody off of Saints practice squad, that showed he is still committed to trying and bolstering depth.
Yeah, it's kind of the insurance play, right? It's like, they certainly didn't plan on having DJ Reed go down for a period of time, and they certainly did not plan to have Terrion go down, and but they did pull in Trey Flowers, so they've got some depth there, but it feels like we need a little more insurance than that, and
experienced insurance.
Yeah, and from a cap perspective, I mean, we talk all the time how Brad has been, very shrewd, I think, and not doing, grabbing big names at trade deadlines. Everybody's like, oh God, like, remember when we needed an edge rusher, guys? Who's talking about that now, right? Our defensive line is great. AQM, obviously, just having some, having a great past few games, especially, pressuring to that. So I do feel like that's really the deja vu, right? The end of last season is now becoming the middle of this season. And hopefully, the luck turns around for us, and but what happens if we lose, more guys, right? We don't have, Dorsey's hurt right now. And, I mean, who's to say that Rocky Sin decides to, like, cramps is no longer cramps. And, now it's like a serious injury. What are we doing then? Are we putting Brian Branch at corner? It's Maddox.
There's an interesting discussion here, guys, because what Dan Campbell has brought to the Detroit Lions is a physicality that only few teams have, right? the Detroit Lions play physically, and they bring it every game. And all this discussion about the preseason and holding players out, and I think one thing, and Dan makes a great point, absolutely a great point about being smart. And so even Taylor Decker sitting out, I'm not sure that the Lions would have done that last year or 2 years ago. And so the good news is the Lions are going to be physical. The bad news is that it's going to take its toll over the course of a long season. And so if we are in a situation to where we're experiencing some of those injuries earlier in the year, the good news is, knock on wood, we've only had one injury that was season ending, Rakestraw. And then, of course, Levi Onwuzurike. I always have trouble saying his name. Onwuzurike.
There you go.
We had two guys. Levi's was not football related. Supposedly, he should have had it taken care of early in the off season. He'd probably be playing. There was a discussion about that. But the good news is the injuries that we have had are not season-ending injuries like last year, where we had a lot of season-ending injuries. So the good news is Lions are going to play physical. That's going to take its toll on teams that are not as talented, number one. And, when Dan talks about dragging you to the deep water and drowning you, that's what he's talking about, is we are going to out physical you. We are going to be more physical. We are going to be more aggressive, and we're going to choke the life out of you. I don't care if you have, 3 ass cheeks and 2 toes. I'm going to beat your butt, is what he said. And so that mentality, what comes with that is this physical nature that's going to manifest itself in more injuries. Our key here is, how do we get to the playoffs and be as healthy as we can be and not lose people for the year. So Dan bringing up the fact that we've got to let, Taylor Decker get right. It's more important to let Taylor Decker get right. Jared Goff hopefully doesn't get hit by any more buses in the games. But the reality is that we have to hope, and I think somebody made a comment there, that we are going to be in a situation to where we can be as healthy as possible in the playoffs and late in the season.
Yeah, Fleeting EXP says we're going to lose more guys. It's the NFL, and they play tough. The trick is not to lose them for more than a few weeks, which is very true. Dan, I know you sent us this Adam Schefter tweet here.
Yeah. So Schefter basically came out and said, we've seen last week, I had some fun with some Bengals fans, and if you're listening, thanks for having fun with me. I'm an Ohio guy, by the way, Bengals fan. So
don't bring that into. Remember, I have the eject.
Hey, I am a Detroit sports through and through, but I live in Ohio. So but one of the things that came up is that I was joking that the Lions broke both the Browns and the Bengals because we played them, we stomped them, and they both made trades. Because guess what? Their division sucks. I mean, the Steelers, I think, are leading their division at what, 3-1, 3-2. The Browns, the Bengals, they both were expected to be better, and of course the Ravens. Holy smokes! They're supposed to have been a Super Bowl contender, but injuries have just absolutely decimated them. So the tweet here is basically Schefter said between now and the trade deadline, which I don't know off the top of my head when it is. Maybe Mike can look it up. There it is, November 4th. So we've got about 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks left. Schefter thinks there's going to be two to three trades a week as teams bolster their rosters. And we've had last week, Cam Robinson went to the Browns, because they obviously realized their offensive tackles are not adequate. And this week, you had two today. You had Flacco going to the Bengals. The Bengals clearly aren't going to get better with Browning. They know what he can't do. They need somebody that can help them win a game or two until they get Burrow back.
Yeah.
And then I believe the other trade was the Ravens sent their underperforming defensive end, who only has something like 4 tackles and no sacks and 1 quarterback hit. They sent him off to San Diego, I think, for a safety because their defensive backfield is just decimated. So they need an experienced safety back there with guys being down, including Kyle Hamilton. And I think basically 4 of their top 5 DBs are out or injured. So, Lions need to consider that. They need to make sure that we lose anybody else, we're prepared to make that trade. And if it costs us some draft capital, I guess so be it, because we're in a position this year to go to the playoffs and make some noise. As long as we don't want to repeat of last year, we go in and lay an egg.
Right.
Next 2 weeks are going to be important. We could come out of this 0-2. It's not unreasonable. Tampa's, even with their injuries, they're still a dangerous team. Baker Mayfield has turned into just the kind of guy that you're just like, you hate his guts, but you wish he was on your team.
Yeah.
He just makes plays and makes trash plays. But so does Patrick Mahomes. He's made a living off of that.
They're scrappy, tough players.
Scrappy, but
sure.
they can also throw a perfect pass.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of where it's there. I did want to go back. One of the things, Brent, you were talking earlier about the line, you guys are focusing on Manu and whether we keep him there. We do have options, right? The nuclear option is you take Penn and you move him to left tackle. And the problem is you expose your rookie right guard to an inferior lineman next to him. And that is probably not a strengthening the offensive line as a whole type move. But we do have Skipper out there. Skipper has played in the last 2 years, and maybe, Mike, you can look this up. Skipper has played it for Decker at least twice, maybe 3 times. He has started games over the last couple of years since we've started this run of being a good team. And if he's healthy, because I know he was injured and was out, he might be an elevated call-up. And frankly, I kind of thought he might have been called up this week. They called up Cochrane instead, so maybe he hasn't been healthy. But, between that and the DBs being decimated and had to call one of them up, we might be missing him. So if we see him practicing and see his name come out of the beat writers that are on the ground there up in Allen Park, he's the guy they bring up to bring in if Manu struggles again. But, Brent, I think you made a great point. They don't have a dominant pass rusher. This is the game to make the adjustments. They know where he struggles now. And let's just say that the 4 sacks were not all on Manu. Morton tried to have frickin' Wright or Zylstra or whoever, I don't know who it was. They tried to have a tight end block Hendrickson on the strip sack. Are you nuts? You can't bring a guy over from the right-hand side in motion and try and take him out and unblock Trey Hendrickson. It doesn't work. I thought that we sent that trash to Chicago with the rest of the trash. So
there were 2 whiffs for Manu, but we can't.
Yeah, he had 2 whiffs for sure.
We can't. Yeah, I agree. We can't have Brock Wright blocking Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely was that was not something that they wanted. At that point. So you wonder if what happened there. But guys, I know we're at the top of the hour. It looks like 11 starts for Skipper since 2022. I don't know about Skipper. I'm not in this. Listen, I like
is where I'm at.
With him. I mean, but he didn't quite make the team. Got hurt. There's a lot of stuff there. Listen, I root for the guy big time. He's huge. Really super likable guy. At this point, we need somebody better at left tackle who can back up Decker. And maybe for another show, we're talking about what we do when Decker retires, right? I mean, I think this is a legitimate conversation. Kind of felt like we somewhat had a plan, maybe with Ragnow retiring and Ratledge and moving Glasgow there, but Graham Glasgow and Taylor Decker might not be on the Detroit Lions next season. They may not be playing, so we got to be thinking about stuff like that and who those players are. And with that, folks, we appreciate you joining us. We went a little bit over, but we have people like Fleeting EXP here hanging out with us overtime. We know Brent wants to get to watch the Tigers game. He's got one eye on it already.
No, he doesn't.
But we do appreciate everybody. Wanda, William, the 2 fan as well for joining us. And as always, we always end this way. We don't say go blue. We don't say go. We don't say OH. We say go Lions.
Go Lions.
Thanks, everybody.
Busts it outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And off Barry, skirts to the left side, breaks the tackle, and he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions.